Climate change is a defining issue of our time, with effects that are global in scope and unprecedented in scale. For this project, we examine where carbon dioxide emissions come from and how different countries contribute to CO2 emissions. First, we'll take a look at the primary sources of carbon emissions and how each source has contributed to global emissions from 1950 to 2014. Coal and oil production are consistently the top two contributors, and changing the year slider reveals that emissions from all five sources have increased over time. Next, we'll look at how different sources of CO2 emissions were distributed across the world in 2014. For each emission source, we specifically compared the total of the top 5 emitters to the rest of the world's total. These pie charts reveal how the top 5 emitters contribute disproportionately to global emissions. Looking at these pie charts, we can see that the top 5 countries emitted more than 3/4 of the world's coal emissions. Now, we'll take a step back and look at the carbon emissions from each country, broken down by year. Clicking on a country reveals a bar chart that breaks down the sources of CO2 emissions for the chosen country in the chosen year. For instance, in 2014, we can see that the US and China have some of the highest total carbon emissions in the world. By clicking on those countries, we can see that the top emission source in the US is oil, while when clicking on China, the top emission source is coal. Overall, our project visualizes the breakdown of CO2 emission sources and the rapid growth of CO2 emissions globally. It also reveals the top-heavy distribution of emissions amongst the countries of the world, with the top 5 emitters being responsible for a disproportionate majority of emissions worldwide.